Thank you, Dave, and thanks the elite panel for my inclusion. And so welcome all the postgraduates and the residents for this excellent program. So far, the discussion has been on the jewel in the crown. So basically, all these the post-nominal degrees that you add, the kind of excellence that you acquire. Basically, this has to sit on a head. So I'm talking on that particular thing, the foundation on which the entire edifice of your ophthalmic excellence actually rests. That is your basic training. Usually it is in India or elsewhere. So your postgraduate training as well as your fellowship training, be it even senior residency, how to make the most out of it. So when we see postgraduates and fellows in our career, we find that there is some kind of lack of application, some kind of a planning where they really do not exploit the situation. They're lost in their choices or priorities. So that is the reason why this talk makes sense in trying to, trying to help them to make the most of our training. I think these are the best days. Believe me, whatever you may think of the people who have, done well in practice and having a lavish life, very good, they've done well in their every aspect of life, you always look forward to, but you believe this is the best time where you really can make it constructive, have still fun along with learning. So I always say that the triad of success is in acquiring knowledge. The second is about the skills, and the third is the attitude. So the knowledge, skill, attitude triad is something that we actually discuss and how we build upon these three things. I think the knowledge, needless to say, now we are swimming in the ocean of information. I still remember those days of my residency training in RP Center where we would go to those dusty corners of National Medical Library, the adjacent building, and grow up in the dark and in the dust to get some information about some rare disease or some particular article, or the textbooks were so scarce, especially the foreign authors books were so difficult to actually buy. We used to share them, photocopy them, and get all that some kind of things where there was really a shortage of information. Now there is totally a reverse situation where you are actually confused. There is so much information everywhere and the time is too short. Your 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, whatever training that is allotted is too short to gain the kind of knowledge because of the explosion that is happening in every direction. But at the same time, coming to the pivotal, the purpose, what is the reason why you get into these books to acquire knowledge? So basically, obviously, the very mundane thing is the materialistic approach is to be employable. At the end of the day, I think everyone has to agree to the fact that when you become an ophthalmologist, you have to be employable, be it in your own setup, be in an institutional practice, be in a corporate setup. You need to be useful to patients, be productive surgically, clinically, make money, and make your patients fine. So that is the whole reason. That is basically the whole purpose of your training whatsoever. So let us not move away from the central focus that the whole idea is to make yourself employable. So any PG or any fellow has to ask himself, is he employable? I think this one question will get the whole direction, will make a course correction. And obviously, knowledge, textbooks, more than that, there are a lot of digital information. There are plenties of GBs of information, books in everybody's laptops and iPads, but how many of them really go to that? Actually, there is a problem in plenty. Earlier, we had some set textbooks. I would know from cover to cover, at least that was expected. Now you have 100 books to refer for a particular thing. So you probably read none. And you will really not be able to quote from. You would even quote the footnotes of our textbooks. Now, even you don't know the covers actually. That is the whole problem. And again, this knowledge, very importantly, has to be relevant and contemporary. See, this is the whole problem. I still had a postgraduate in some problem, in some conference, in some PG program, trying to tell about the details of a limbal ring localization. See, you should understand that limbal ring is nowhere right now the contemporary thing. It is not relevant to the present practice. The whole idea and the things have changed quite a lot. People who read textbooks only, not attend the conference or listen to the mentors, still are confused how to manage a retinal vein occlusion. Things are changing so fast that you need to keep abreast of what is happening. Like the neovascular glaucoma, even today the PGs know that we need to treat the posterior segment first and then the intraocular pressure. Now there are a lot of attempts to now treat the glaucoma first with a Ahmed glaucoma valve and then treat the posterior segment. So all these things, what is changing? We have the PGs have to be, or the fellows have to be, in line with that. And what is very important, it has to be usable and practical. See, that is the whole idea. See, what information that you learn has to be used. For example, the most important thing is the problem of present day PG teaching. I always, profess this, is that we are absolutely non-practical in the sense like we have a question in the exam like what is the etiopathogenesis, what is the treatment of ocular or clinical features of ocular sarcoidosis. No patient comes with a label on his forehead that he is having ocular sarcoidosis. In fact, we should have a kind of a chapter where sudden vision loss or vision loss. So basically the patient comes with a symptom. We go from the, we know the problem, then try to know everything about it, the symptoms. In fact, we have to do a reverse engineering. We have to teach our postgraduates and fellows that we start with a symptom and then what is the likely, possibilities and how do you differentiate, how do you investigate, how do you manage. I think if you do this reverse engineering, probably it becomes more usable. So we have a lot of postgraduate teaching programs in the colleges where there's a seminars given by the postgraduates themselves. So obviously this is a rote learning. They download or make PowerPoints, hundreds of slides, there's a discussion, but there is never actually a reverse engineering technique. We never go from a case-based discussion. In fact, we should be discussing cases. That is the reason why many of our Indian students find it difficult in these exams that has been so far discussed by both Dr. Akshay and Dr. Savan. I think very importantly is the knowledge you gain is more practical if you gain it from your mentors and the stalwarts. I think the post-graduation is no more about teachers. That is all over by your medical school undergraduation. Now it's all about mentoring. We cannot teach a postgraduate anything. He has to acquire knowledge, but we can only mentor and show the direction. So that is probably very important. I think this is very, very important because the mentor instills all his experience. If a mentor has taken 30 years to gain some particular usable knowledge, I think it can be immediately transferred to the postgraduate in no time. So that is what is. So probably the mentor say what is not in the textbook, and it is probably a very basic mistake that a PG believes the textbook verbatim. He doesn't understand there is always another side of the coin, and there's require continuous updating and upgrading, because the way an expert or a stalwart approach a particular problem is much different than the rote learning that we get in the textbooks. And the next thing is the skills. I think observational skills, I keep it at the top of the list, because I see some postgraduates, I'm doing a surgery, somebody is watching it in the theater, and next time he's given a chance, he does it so well because he has seen it in the way that if at all given a chance next time, how I'll do it. Probably that is the way he sees it. Whereas the people who have seen it 10 times don't really pick up the thing. So observational skills, especially watching and then trying to adapt it. So that is probably a very important skill which becomes very useful in. And the surgical skills. I think today's postgraduate training is all about number game. People scale or people, kind of evaluate their surgery, their training by the number of cataract surgeries. So all surgical training is only about cataract. There are no other non-cataract surgical skills are not taken into consideration. And it's always a number that the patient, the PGs get into a despair looking, comparing the numbers of various institutions. Whereas they may not really have learned the comprehensive surgical skills. So surgical skills is probably very important. It cannot be overemphasized. And clinical and diagnostic skills, this is important. See, this is where the real crux of the issue comes. When a patient comes to you in practice, it is in the outpatient department that you need to diagnose, you need to counsel, you need to impress the patient. Then the patient walks into your operating room. So this is important. So however good surgeon you are, it's your OPD skills which makes a patient to enter your operating room. So that is where the importance of this comes in. And I think needless to say, communication skills and soft skills, that is what sets apart. We do not have a curriculum as such. We do not have any marks allotted for their communication skills or soft skill training, but that is the most emphatic thing that decides between a successful and not so successful practitioners. And of course, if you have an exam, it's a separate thing by itself. We run a program exclusively to train people to pass exams. So I know that probably you need to probably set apart some skills how to pass the exam, which probably may not include all the other 4 skills. I think here, as I probably again dwell upon the observational skills, you need to look at your role models. Probably you need to look at people how not to be, and there are some people how to be. So role models, who are your role models? Choose your role models well. There are enough now. Now there are, everybody wants to part with their knowledge, teach people. The present day, in the virtual world, we have so many platforms where you can actually directly access the knowledge of the real stalwarts in the field, the veterans in the field. So if you are in your setup or anywhere else, try to look at how they actually. So I have always told my fellows to stand behind a senior consultant and just to watch them run the OPD. They always watch us in the theater, but not in the OPD. OPD skills, what I call it as a reverse O6. I think that is the way we try to evaluate a student's outpatient skills, their clinical skill in the OPD, but it is the other way around. As fellow stand behind me and probably watches me how I manage a particular case, because I'm trying to put in all my experience, all my skills, clinical, diagnostic, communication skills, counseling skills into that particular case. And that is where they get the most out of when watching people in the operating room. Of course, watching surgeries, trying to get the nuance of it. See, what is important, they just watch, like I always use the analogy of a Korean movie without subtitles. If you're watching a Korean movie without subtitles, you just watch it, but nothing goes into your head. So most people watch exotic surgeries and they're just watching. Nothing is really getting, they're not really in the process of trying to inculcate that surgical nuances. And many times they're interested in the exotic surgeries. In fact, they would have not seen me operating a pterygium with an autograft. Probably they would have missed out the important steps of a more commonly done procedure. They would be waiting to see some rare surgery, which I probably do once in a year, which they may not get a chance to do it in their private practice at all. So probably this is something any has to do. And surgical skills, you have to start early. Most people have a latency in medical college, or they don't enter the theater for 3 months, 6 months. They don't start surgery. I think you have to start early. It's all about, psychomotor skills. You need to get that finesse. You need to get that hand-eye coordination. The earlier you start, the better it is for you. And the wet lab. Of course, the wet labs are increasing, fortunately now, but still a wet lab training is something that really makes you ready for the, to get into to operate on the actual patients. And presently we are plagued with, they always say that there's a common complaint that most medical colleges do not have enough surgical training facilities. There's a lack of infrastructure. There are no microscopes. I think there are always innovation possible. I know they do get enough stipend. The microscopes are available for hardly 2.5, 3 lakhs now. I know a medical college where everybody contributed 10,000 rupees and bought a microscope, Appasamy microscope. And it was like a share. So they sold their shares after 1 year of once they passed out to the incoming postgraduates. So they had their own microscope. In that way, they had multiple things commonly used, equipments, without bothering the management, without having to say that we do not have infrastructure. I think if you probably have your commitment, things will happen. And surgically, whenever you are doing a surgical skill, it's very important you respect the tissue, you respect the patient, especially on a community setup where we are doing charitable surgeries. It's very important that we have to respect that we have been learning and their eyes have been given on a platter to us to practice. I think this is the ultimate, approach of, humanitarian approach. And finally, it's the communication skills which takes you through. I always say the success lies in the Broca's area of the brain. You have to watch people, how they communicate. You have to rehearse in front of the mirror. There is nothing harm in that. I think Dr. Sawant said so well that this is so important in the exams in the Western world. And in India, we do not really give enough emphasis on these things. You have to emulate people. There are already some set practices, just copy paste that. You need to enact it before you actually go into the real world. And you need to train people how to break the bad news, how to counsel cataract patients, and how to prognosticate. So this is something that's very important. Clinical skills is about getting maximum information from a patient in a minimum time. You don't have half an hour in your busy OPD in your real world. So the quality and the accuracy of findings that you get is something you need to stress on. And again, I told you soft skills, putting patient at ease, the empathetic approach. This is where you convert a novice into an expert. So that is your journey for any fellow or a postgraduate, that he becomes an expert from his noviceness. I think the third one is the attitude, on which we really do not have anything to contribute. Your environment, your teachers, mentors cannot change this. You are born with an attitude. Only you can change this. Skills we can impart, knowledge we can impart, the attitude is something inborn. I think so. This is where the another triad of you have a head where you have an exemplary contemporary knowledge that is usable by you. You have a good hands where you have the enough surgical skills, the finesse to really impart the well justified treatment to the patient in terms of surgeries and procedures, and a heart which really makes a patient comfortable. You have to be empathetic and see that when you really mean something, the patient actually get those vibes, and you will be able to actually communicate that to the patient that you actually are wishing for his well-being. So this triad of heart, head, and hand combination is a sure shot success for our postgraduates. So thank you very much, and all the best for your future.